Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today is the next part of the series of Dollar Tree DIY farmhouse tips and dupes. We're going to make a rope basket. These are some inspirations. The small one in that collection was $37. This one was like $72. I know that they're handmade baskets, but that's what we're going to make. So we're going to use nautical rope. We ended up using just under 3 of the nautical ropes. Just over 3. Just over 2. So you're going to need 3. Hot glue and scissor. I'm sorry, I can't speak. And we're also going to use a bucket. Now, the bucket that I'm going to use was a couple of seasons ago at the Dollar Tree, and it's going to get trashed, and it didn't make a difference to me. If you did this with a plastic bucket, like those plastic ones that they have that look like this shape, it would probably not have to get trashed, but because this is not forgiving, and I'll explain to you how you can maybe avoid trashing your bucket. So I've decided to wrap this in a layer of cling film to help me, in case hot glue seeped under the rope and onto the bucket, to release the bucket. However, one layer of cling film did not work. I will tell you that. Try a couple of layers, maybe that will help, but the hot glue basically melted through the plastic immediately and onto the bucket. Also, the angle of the bottom of the bucket is another reason that it had gotten stuck, so be mindful of that when you're choosing your bucket. But we're going to start from the top, and the reason we're going to start from the top is because, as you see here, I'm trying to go like, well, if I started in the middle on the bottom, I just don't know that I would be able to line it up perfectly. Ideally, you would want to start in the middle of the bottom. However, you would really have to know exactly where to start in the middle of the bottom. And since I don't have the foresight to see into the future, I went ahead and I started at the top. Now, this is like different things that we've wrapped in rope before. We've wrapped in jute before as well. But we're going to do a little different this time is we're just going to try, the key word is try, to glue rope to rope. We're not gluing rope to bucket. And obviously, as I said before, I ended up trashing this bucket. You'll see at the end. But so I wasn't 100% successful. However, I also was trying to get this done in under an hour so that my video wouldn't be 6 years long. So if you took your time, I can guarantee you that you would probably be more successful at just gluing rope to rope than I was. But as you can see, I was kind of really trying to go fast. And this is actually 4 times speed. So I really look like I'm going fast. But this project did take me just under an hour. And that was doing it quickly. So put on a movie, have a seat. If you have a big bucket, get extra rope. And just glue rope to rope. So as I was going along, I was making sure that I pushed it down. I started it, I never actually mentioned to you how we started it. I took a little dot of glue and put the rope on the inside of the bucket to start it. Because I knew I was going to put handles on here. And that was going to get finished at the top when I was done. So what I'm showing you here now is how I'm connecting the 2 pieces of rope. So if you've ever used this nautical rope before, or rope in general, you know that it can tend to unknot and fray at the end. So what we're doing is, it's taped when you get it from the store. What I do with a lot of ropes like this is I stick the hot glue, not a whole lot, but just like a tiny push of hot glue down the middle of the rope. I basically insert it through the 3 layers of rope, and then I take my hand and I twist them back like the factory would have, and that basically glues the end and keeps them from unraveling. And then when I getting ready to connect the 2 ends, I basically just butt them up to each other because we're going to glue over them with another couple of layers of rope at the top. We don't have to worry about them coming apart in that particular area. All right. Plus, this isn't a heavy-duty basket. It could be. If you wanted it to be a heavy-duty basket, there's lots of tips and techniques on how to do that. Reinforcing the insides is one. We're making the handle construction to the handles will be constructed that it could carry some heavy-duty items. But you know, you would definitely want to be more mindful of how you glue and to reinforce the bucket on the inside if you wanted to make it more heavy duty. Okay, plus the size is small, and that's another thing that makes it, we don't have to worry about what we put in it. Now, I did contemplate leaving the bucket in there, just for a a second, because the way as you'll see at the end, the way I wanted the handle constructed, was going to require me putting rope on the inside. So I couldn't. Hindsight would have had to been to put the handle on first, but that wouldn't have worked either, because I'll show you in a minute what I'm talking about. But you could basically rope this around a bucket like this, or one of the plastic pails or whatever, but I just wanted it to just be a rope basket. My main inspiration for this was when I was at Eden's house over the summer. She had a cute little rope basket that was made with like the white cotton rope, on the in the baby's bathroom on the counter. And I was like, oh, I totally can do that with Dollar Tree rope. And I knew I had some at home, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So we're just going to continue around, like I said. And when we get to the top is where we really have to start different types of construction, is basically what I'm saying. Once we go over the corners, or when we're getting ready to go over the corners, oh, connecting more rope, are we? Okay. We'll do the same connecting we did before. Put glue down the center of each rope and twist it along to keep it from unraveling. And then continue gluing, butting it up to each other, and then layering it over it with the next piece of rope. But one thing we're going to do that's a little different is when we get to the very top row, we're going to take a couple of scrap pieces of rope, and we're going to put them, basically use them as bumpers, use them as placeholders for our handles. So we're just going to take two little scrap pieces of rope, and I had these left over from a previous project, just scraps left over, and I'm gluing around them. So I've basically glued up to the rope, I've glued between the ropes, and then I've glued on the other side of the second rope, and I've held each one of them for like at least a minute, 60 good seconds, to make sure it adheres and doesn't come off. Make sure your rope is cool before you go ahead and take your fingers off, because it will just want to come away. It won't basically keep its shape. And the other side I'm going to show you later, we're going to actually just make one big loop, and it won't be objectionable, but it just is going to have two different looks on both sides, so I could show you both examples. All right, we're going to do the same thing to the other side. We're going to put two pieces of rope and basically build around them. Actually, the other side I ended up using my fingers. I just took like my finger and I went and I made like an M almost in the rope, as you could see here. And then when we go over it with the last layer of rope, we're going to go over it, and we're only going to glue, obviously, where there's rope. We're going to glue up to the bump in the middle, and we're going to glue after the bump. And this is just a design element that I wanted for my handles, but you guys can do whatever you want for yours. You can just keep going and just glue handles on it. If they're just going to be decorative, then don't worry about it. There's all different ways and there's all different techniques. This is just, again, these rope baskets, these natural colored baskets are very, very farmhouse country. So I wanted to make sure that you know how to make one with Dollar Tree products if you wanted. Okay? So once we start to get over that little lip, now this is what got stuck on my basket, is that this bucket actually has like a lip that goes down, a pretty deep one considering. So when I had started to glue, I turned it on its side and I was gluing rope to rope, but what I ended up doing was I ended up hugging that little part a little bit too much. So that's what got stuck on mine. But you go ahead and just be mindful of that when you're going to glue rope on rope. And then when it comes to the very, very bottom, you will see why I didn't start in the middle, or why it wouldn't have worked to start in the middle anyway. Because that middle section of rope actually ends up being on the inside of the basket. And I'll show you when we get to it. But like I said, I'm just being mindful to just glue to the rope and putting the rope on the inside. And I'm using the natural curve of the rope at the ends. I'm just allowing it to fit in there. Okay. And then when I get to the very, very last piece, like I said, I'm not going to finish it because I'm going to take the bucket off first. And then I'm going to feed the last piece of rope into the bucket, into the basket. And then I'm going to glue it on the inside. All right. Well, let's get to that first. And like I said, this might have worked a little bit better if I had given a few layers of plastic wrap on top. And I would suggest that if that's the case, if you're going to do that. Now, I knew that there would probably be plastic wrap in the basket when I was done, and I didn't care. If you care about that, then you want to just do something else. Maybe parchment paper or wax paper might work. But then you'll have to probably tape that down. So just consider these options when you're doing it. So now I knew that I was going to try to find a way to get between the basket and the bucket. And what I realized was this bucket was kind of old. I bought it for the wedding last summer. It wasn't really my style, so I really didn't care. And I have 4 of them. So I really didn't care about destroying it at this point. So I ended up folding in the sides and then using it like to getting my hand in there and really working it out. But it kind of snapped back to shape. I nested it exactly like that. I nested it between the other 3 buckets. And it's still holding its shape. But here's what we're left with this basket. And now what we have to do is we have to finish the bottom. So what I'm doing is I'm feeding all the excess rope in the space. There's just one width of rope wide. And what we're going to do is we're actually glue it on the inside. Just to give a little bit more stability so nothing pushes that rope through and makes a big hole in the bottom of your basket. Does that make sense? So I've fed it through. I've put a whole bunch of glue down. I've laid the rope back down. Yeah, I should use my glue mat. And then I cut off the excess, leaving about 1 inch inside the basket. So you can see there how it looks. It's a little bit bumped on the bottom, but because this basket actually is going to have almost like 4 feet, you won't even notice that. So I'm not really too worried about that. Because the way I wanted to do my handle is to basically, I wanted it to cross under the bottom of the whole basket and go inside the basket to make the handles. So this way, if you did put something heavy into it, this handles would support the weight of the bottom of the basket. Does that make sense? So what I've done is I'm starting on the inside, gluing where I want the handle to come up, about halfway up the basket. I'm starting about halfway up the basket. I'm gluing where I want the handle to come up, gluing back down where I want the handle to go back down. And we're using a lot of rope here. We're using like the leftover piece of rope because I don't know exactly how much I'll need. And I'm feeding the whole rope through one of those letters of the M, the corresponding letter to what side the handle's on. Okay, and now I'm gluing it diagonally across the bottom of the basket. Hindsight, I probably didn't have to do it diagonally, but that's the look that I was going for. So it will end up having like 4 little feet in the corners as well. And then I'm going to feed it back through that corresponding side of that M. And I'm going to repeat the process. I'm going to glue it up. Oh, just make sure it lays flat. I'm going to glue it up inside the inside of the basket. Match the handle to the size that you want to try to match the left and right handles the best you can. But again, handmade, perfectly imperfect. That's what we like. And first I'm going to feed it through and then I'm going to glue it. Put some hot glue. Lay the handle where I want it. Now the second handle ended up being a little narrower and I liked it better. But it's okay. It's okay that it's different. But just think about that when you're doing yours. Now when I go to cross over, I don't want a huge bump in the middle. So I've pushed the basket in as I am going over that second piece. So that basically those 4 feet, quote unquote feet, are the most prominent pieces sticking out the bottom. And then I'm going to continue on the inside of the handle where I left off. I'm going to double secure it by putting a whole line of glue, and then, like putting the rope down almost the whole depth of the basket, and then bringing the rope up almost the whole depth of the basket just to give it more security. And that's it. I know it kind of sounds crazy that it was so easy, so weird, but I decided to farmhouse it up for you guys by putting some mason jars in there, and then showing you what it would look like in your kitchen, or little towels rolled up. There's a washcloth that for my bathroom. So I hope you really enjoyed this tutorial. It was fun to do for you guys. Like I said, if you're doing it for yourself, you're going to do it a little bit slower. If you have any questions at all, please leave them in the comments down below. Share with friends and family. Give this video a thumbs up. And subscribe and like if you haven't yet. I really would appreciate it. And as always, take care. God bless. See you next time. Bye.